Okay, I'm going to go over the concept of effort reward and show practical applications of it. There's a lot of applications because it is a principle that you see all the time. The Wyckoff principle of effort reward is very similar to a volume diversion, meaning you'll hear like price should go up in proportion to the amount of volume. So for example, if you have a good amount of volume, as price goes higher, it means that they're buyers and they have the ability to push prices higher, and vice versa. If you have a good amount of volume, you should have a good amount of price movement down or up, so the point is price movement should be proportional to the amount of volume. So what happens when that doesn't occur? So again, with my little pink tool here, this principle is identifying effort reward, which is also known as bag holding, which can be also known as I forgot what it was called, but the idea is, let's say you have a lot of volume. Let's say you have this much volume, right? And other bars are like this, right? And you have a bar how is it that all this volume is only producing this much price spread, this much price progress? Okay, that is effort reward. That is bag holding. That is a volume diversion, or whatever you want to call it. But that really comes down to this: there's sellers up here. There are sellers in this bar. That's what this is saying. This is because what were these guys doing? What was occurring? There's so much volume. What was occurring? Is it buying, selling? What's going on? The fact that price was unable to move means that there is selling. Alright? It means that there is selling, and obviously it needs to be confirmed by a lower low in this case. Alright? So keep that in mind as I try to explain this concept. So this is the Dow Jones, and it really is chart independent, the concept of effort reward. I mean, I've seen it all the time in waves, in candles. Well, it doesn't really matter whatever chart you use. All you're trying to do is identify lack of price progress with a lot of volume, and what that means is there are bag holders. So let me see if I can find an example. Something I did today. Oh, this one right here. It's not easy to find mechanically, but it can be done. But you still have to use judgment to verify it. Otherwise, you can't really do these. You can't really trade mechanically. Otherwise, your numbers. Anyway, look. So you see this demand wave here, right? You have this demand wave, and then you have this pullback. You have a demand wave, and then you have a pullback, and then it's doing this up, down, up, down, up, down. But now take a look at this bar. Alright, let's zoom in on it. Alright. Let's zoom in on it. Now what you're going to see is it goes down on 6 volume, and then there is 24 volume up. Okay? So remember the background. Like, you have to think of the background. Background is bullish. You have a bull wave that's pretty strong, 7 bars, and then you have a pullback of about 5 bars. After that pullback, you have this bar here, which has massive volume, relatively speaking. It has 24. Alright, now it's in, like, I think it's in hundreds, so 2400 or whatever. 24 volume, right? This is big volume. This has more volume than the last, I'll say about 25 bars. So this one bar is juice. You know, it has a lot of buying pressure. You have a pullback on 10, an attempt on 2, and then another pullback on 19 volume. Again, heavy volume, relatively speaking. Alright, so you have big volume, you have more heavy volume here, and look, it's unable to go lower. It's unable to go lower. What does that mean? That means there's an exchange of contracts. Contracts are exchanging hands. They're going from one hand to another hand, one side to another, from sellers to buyers. So over here, when it went down, buyers, came in and bought, and sellers obviously sold to them. So they bought about 2400. Then they shit in the middle. Then again, as price went down, there was an exchange of contracts. And again, buyers scooped up another 1900 contracts. As price was going down, buyers said, they said, hey, sellers sold, buyers bought. So they're as price is moving up and down here, there is an exchange of contracts, exchange of assets, or whatever you want to call it, transfer of risk. That's what some people call it. So we know that it's moving in their hands, and what's critical is that there's no further downside progress. After this exchange of contracts, as price went up, down, here, heavy exchange of contracts as evidenced by the volume. See that? So why is it that there's high volume? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why is it that there's a high volume here and there's high volume here? Do you think it's totally random? People just buying for no reason? Oh yeah, let me buy 2400 contracts. You know what? Okay, let me also buy 1900 contracts on the pullback here. That shit doesn't happen. People don't buy and sell randomly. Okay? Common sense. Do you buy and sell randomly? Or do you have a reason to buy and sell? Now, I'm not saying that markets can't be random, but what I'm saying is that when this type of activity occurs, I don't believe it's random. Okay? I believe there's a motive. If it was just like 9 or 4, the average amount, that's fine. But when it's 200%, look at this. Double. Look at this. It's much more. So there's something going on. There is the word is accumulation. There is an accumulation of contracts here. Okay, now I know people say accumulation needs to look like a base, but ask yourself, does it really need to look like a base? Or is it just a large trader or a group or a fund or whatever just buying? So however that buying looks, whether it's big base, little base, or however that transfer looks, you have to ask yourself, is there evidence that transfer has occurred? Do you see that transferred? And you see that transfer here. They're buying within this zone. They're buying on the way up and then on the way down. They want this area. There is desire to accumulate in this area, and this is evidenced by the volume. Now you really don't know this until, in my opinion, over here was what gave me the the confidence that it is more than likely that the price would go up, because they accumulated this area. It is more than likely price will go down or up. Up, motherfucker. Excuse my language. But over here, you see this? Buy, and what do you know about accumulation? Accumulation is responsible for accumulation is responsible for markup and distribution. I don't know if I should use the word causes or whatever, but accumulation precedes markup and distribution precedes markdown. Accumulation before markup, distribution before markdown. So you need to be able to detect these things. This was the cycle. This is the cycle that Wyckoff put together. What he said was, you have this type of activity. Okay, where you have accumulation, markup, distribution, markdown, then accumulation, markup, distribution, markdown. Now obviously it could be in another way, like accumulation here and then just straight up markup, right? So I'm just putting it in cycle form. Alright, so there could be accumulation here, then you have markup, then distribution, okay, and then markdown. And on the way you can also have reaccumulation. So like price can go up and then do this, a little consolidation, and then continue markup. Alright, so this is called reaccumulation. Alright. But the whole point, and that is so critical, is to understand that the composite man, which is the big manipulator, or the other definition is that it is supply or demand, the composite of supply and demand, meaning like if you put it all together, what is the bias, the composite. So the idea is that you want to be able to find this accumulation. Why? Because accumulation occurs before markup. Distribution occurs before markdown. It precedes it. Okay, and what's great about charts is that when you're looking at charts, what you're trying to do is detect these things, accumulation and distribution, to help you identify markup and markdown opportunities. Dig it? So in this case, what is my evidence for accumulation? Well, how about here, this buying wave here, this buying wave here, is that possible accumulation? This buying wave here, is it possible that they're buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling? Yeah. And then at the final point was this brick right here that was buying. Alright, there in this zone. Accumulation comes in different forms, in waves. What you'll typically see, remember, all it is buying, okay? But it comes in different forms. you could have a trend, right? And then you could have all these waves in here, right? These are buying waves. So what they're doing is, let's say they buy 10, then they'll sell 5, then they'll buy 10, then they'll sell 5, then they buy 10, then they sell 5, and they'll do it in a way that the price doesn't increase, it stays within the range. So buy 10, sell 5, buy 10, sell 5, buy 10, sell 5. And I guess excuse me, I guess this is a good example because it has all those waves of buying and selling. So, but this is more of the schematic that's used. So accumulation can look like this. Accumulation can also look like in climax, where one side is selling, the other is buying. But I like to see accumulation like in an uptrend, they hit it with heavy volume here, and it's unable to really break the lows. Instead, it reverses and goes up. So one side is selling, the other is buying. In that chart that I'm showing you, it's occurring in the form of a candle or a brick or whatever, where it's within a zone, and you see that heavy volume comes in here. 1900 contracts preceded by 2400 contracts. So buying activity, aka accumulation. That's what accumulation is. It's just a transfer of assets from one group to another, where one is selling and another buying. Usually it's done near the lows, or towards it won't be really done towards the highs. At the highs they will buy aggressively, and that's called absorption. But this is accumulation. So what happened after that? What do you think happened? They got their trade. Boom, 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 boom. You have 24, you have 19. Maybe it was sold on this brick right here on 40. See that? Maybe they bought here. 24, 19, about 43, I think. 30, 43. So maybe they got out right about here, because there's big volume here. So what do you, when you have big volume at the top, what do you think they're doing? They're doing is buying low, selling high. So these prints here, 40 and 22, could have been exiting their positions. So this is really the idea of a campaign. It occurs on shorter time frames, bigger time frames, and this is what Wyckoff is all about. Just the campaign. This is what really Wyckoff is about. It is about being able to identify smart money campaigns. Okay? Wyckoff, the goal of using a chart is not to see, patterns and stuff like that, but it's the ability for you and me, the little guy, to be able to identify what the big guys are doing. Alright? And how do we do that? You must see the volume. Without that, there's a big problem, because you want to be able to see and detect price and volume, basically accumulation at certain levels, to determine if the big players or the CM is buying or not. Because if they're buying, they're not going to just buy without a purpose. They're buying in order to raise prices. And when you understand that, you understand that it's no different than any other merchandising operation or any other business, where what do? You buy low at wholesale and you sell high at retail. That's the same thing. That really is what's going on here. And with that frame of mind, you want to be able to look at a chart and see if these guys are buying wholesale. Alright? That's the idea. Forget all the patterns, forget all this fancy technical indicators. What you're trying to do with the Wyckoff method is determine if these guys, strong hands or smart money, whatever you call it, are they buying wholesale prices? And sometimes they'll buy after a rally they'll buy here and here, boom 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 boom. You want to see if they're buying in order to lift. Alright, are they buying in order to lift prices? Alright, that's all.